They thought sending men onto my land would scare us into silence. But what they didn't realize was that I've seen worse in my lifetime, and intimidation has never been enough to make me back down. I'll never forget that afternoon. It was one of those crisp days where the sun hits the gravel just right, and you think nothing bad could happen. But then you turn the corner, and life flips on you. I pulled into my driveway and froze because there was my wife, Emily, pressed back against the chicken coop, holding her ground but surrounded by 3 bikers in leather vests, their engines idling like restless beasts behind them. They leaned in too close, one of them flashing a grin full of broken teeth, and in that moment every muscle memory from my old life came rushing back like I'd just put the uniform on again. I cut the truck's engine, stepped out slowly, and felt that old weight of combat training fall across my shoulders. My boots hit the gravel, hard and steady, and that sound alone turned the leader's head. He barked out like he had authority, told me this was business on behalf of our HOA, as if that gave him the right to set foot on my property and back my wife into a corner. Emily looked at me, calm but grateful, like she was relieved I was finally home. She's tougher than most men I know, but 3 against 1 is never fair, and they knew it. I looked the leader dead in the eye and said, "You've got 30 seconds to explain yourselves." My voice was low, steady, the kind of voice that made rookies in my old unit stand straighter without even realizing it. He smirked, told me this was encouragement from the HOA president, a woman named Brenda who had been hounding us for months about every little thing: our coop, our firewood, things she had no jurisdiction over. And now here she was, sending muscle to my front yard. I told them plain and simple: 3 minutes to get off my property, or they'd regret it. They laughed, thought restraint meant weakness. The leader cracked his knuckles and stepped closer to Emily, and that was his mistake. My body moved before my brain had time to argue. Years of training lit up like it was yesterday. I caught his wrist mid-motion, twisted hard, and slammed him into the gravel so fast the dust rose around us. His buddies froze, watching their leader fold under a man holding nothing but a coffee mug in his other hand. "Next," I said evenly. The second guy swung sloppy, like something out of a bad movie, and I ducked under, hooked his arm, and tossed him straight into the coop fence hen screaming, feathers flying everywhere. The third guy hesitated, revving his bike like maybe the roar would be enough to scare me off. I walked up, grabbed the handlebars, and yanked. The whole bike toppled sideways, pinning his leg. He howled, thrashing as I crouched down over him, and said quietly, "Tell your boss next time she wants a message delivered, she'd better send a letter, because if she sends men to threaten my wife again, she won't get them back in one piece." By now the other 2 were scrambling, bruised and limping, one stammering that they hadn't signed up for this, that it was just supposed to be a scare job. I let them drag themselves out, engines sputtering as they tried to salvage what pride they had left. Emily came to stand next to me, brushing the dirt off her jeans. She glanced at her watch and grinned. 3 minutes exactly. That night word spread faster than wildfire. Neighbors whispered, kids repeated half-truths, and by dinner time, Brenda herself stormed up to my doorstep in a rage. Her pearl necklace bounced against her chest as she shrieked accusations of assault and damage, demanding I answer for what I'd done. But the bruised bikers weren't lining up to file charges. Too humiliated, too embarrassed to admit they got taken apart by a man with one hand holding coffee. And I had every second caught on my security cameras. When I played that footage back for her, Brenda's face drained of color. She realized her whole plan had collapsed in on itself. Instead of me cowering, she now had video proof tying her directly to intimidation, and 3 bikers furious enough to reconsider whether working for her was worth the beating they'd taken. I knew she wasn't done, though. Brenda was the type who believed power was her birthright, and she'd burn down the whole neighborhood before admitting she was wrong. That made me even more determined to fight back in a way she'd never see coming. By the time the next HOA meeting rolled around, the rumor mill was so loud you could hear it before you even walked into the community hall. People whispered about the bikers limping away from my driveway, about the mysterious footage everyone claimed existed, and about Brenda's role in it all. I didn't deny a single word. In fact, I came prepared. I hooked my laptop up to the projector and pressed play. The room went dead silent as the footage rolled. 3 bikers pulling up, one grabbing at Emily, me dismantling them in under 3 minutes flat, coffee mug still in hand the whole time. Gasps rippled when the last one begged me to stop, voice cracking like a scared kid. And then the kicker to audio clip where one of them blurted, "The HOA president paid us." You could feel the shift in the room like a storm breaking. Phones came up everywhere, neighbors recording, documenting, making sure Brenda couldn't wiggle out of it later. Brenda shot out of her chair, screeching that it was out of context, that I was twisting things, but by then the tide had turned. A neighbor I barely knew stood up and read directly from the law, quoting state statutes and county ordinances about criminal coercion, harassment, misuse of HOA funds. It was no longer my word against hers. The room had seen the truth with their own eyes. And what happened next was the final nail in her coffin. The bikers themselves cut a deal. Two of them showed up at the sheriff's office the very next morning, bruised, humbled, and more than willing to flip on her in exchange for lighter charges. They handed over texts, payment receipts, even a note she'd written on official HOA letterhead promising them compensation for what she called a scare job. That was all the sheriff needed. By the end of the week, Brenda was served papers. Conspiracy, harassment, misuse of funds, you name it, she had it. I'll never forget the sight of deputies walking her out of her home in handcuffs while neighbors lined the street, some waving, some clapping, one even shouting, "Better send a letter next time." Emily and I stood on our porch with our coffee, watching the patrol cars roll past. It wasn't triumph so much as relief, a weight lifting off the whole community. And that night, the HOA voted her out unanimously. Reforms started immediately: transparency, budget oversight, a strict ban on any enforcement that wasn't backed by real law. It felt like the first step towards something healthier. But the story didn't end there. Weeks later, those same bikers showed up again, not in leather vests this time, but in work shirts, carrying toolboxes. They wanted to make things right, to do repairs around the neighborhood as part of their restitution. They were humble, polite, a lot quieter than before. And when they asked if I was okay with it, I just smiled and said, "As long as you don't mess with my wife again, we'll get along just fine." Here's the thing: sometimes HOA presidents forget their neighbors, not monarchs. They start believing they can run a community like it's their personal kingdom, and when that power goes unchecked, they push people too far. Brenda thought she could send an army to my door. She forgot some of us fight back harder than she could ever imagine. And maybe that's the lesson: when you push a family too far, when you threaten someone's home, you're going to find out that intimidation doesn't work on everyone. Some of us don't scare easy. So I'll leave you with this: what do you think? Was I right to take matters into my own hands that day? Or should I have let the cops handle it from the start? Was Brenda just a bully who got what she deserved? Or did the whole community go too far in making an example out of her? Drop your thoughts down below. Share your own HOA or neighborhood stories, because these things aren't as rare as people think. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because trust me, there are plenty more stories where this one came from.